Okay, so um, welcome everybody. Welcome to today's class. And in today's class, we are going to be looking at query strings, right? Right. And we are also going to go over what we did in our last sockets.io class. Um, so I remember that we've written a couple of endpoints, and then there are some things that are missing on that endpoints, right? Especially the endpoints that has to do with search, or that has to do with getting a list of uh values, right? So I remember that maybe when we are fetching a list of products, we just fetch the list of products like that. We don't check, we are not sorting it by any field. There's no room for searching. There's no room for any of those. We just fetch the whole thing like that. And it's not supposed to be that way, right? We should be able to filter, we should be able to sort, we should be able to or the user, right, that's using that endpoint should be able to sort or filter or search. And we'll see how we can actually uh, put that into place, right? Then also, we talked about query strings in our last class. Sorry, we talked about sockets.io in our last class, and then uh we saw how we were able to send messages between two people, and then uh sending message between two people, and then managing that scenario with those messages. And then we'd see um we'll see. Someone is saying, thank God. Thank God that the class is going to be short. All right, cool. No problem. So I get then we are going to see how the whole thing works, how socket.io works, and then um how or what else we need to implement on it, right? I don't remember if we were saving data to the database or not, but we're going to see how we are going to do that in today's class. Right. So I guess you guys must have seen how query strings are, right? Maybe you've used them before, but not directly by writing them into the URL, but I'm sure you've seen a query string before, and I'm going to give you examples of how a query string looks like, and possibly um how to use it on your um what is it being called? How to use it on your front end, on the back end, right? Okay, so let's go over to where we would write our code, right? Let's go over there. Let me reshare my screen. Uh, okay. Okay, so you guys have seen URLs that look like this. Uh, Maybe something like send to me.unrender.com. Let's just let me use it. Okay, something like this. Maybe you have an URL like this, but then you have something like question mark. It's right thing panel. So you have something like question mark, then you have maybe um maybe show sidebar. Show sidebar is equals to false. Maybe something like and sorry and maybe type something. I'm just putting something random, and type is equals to um um maybe I don't know, maybe something like this, right? Now this is the query part of this string, right? This is the query part of this string, and one thing that makes query strings very powerful is that they are dynamic, right? For example, you might decide not to maybe have this part of the query string or have it equal to just empty, something like this, right? Or you could just exclude it totally. Yeah. So if you've connected to Mongoose, right? Or MongoDB, right? Sorry, Mongo Atlas. You look towards the end of the query string, of sorry, the link you copied from Mongo Atlas to come and paste on your code base. You find out that there's this part also on it, right? I think something like is it majority of something and rewrite, is it retry, something like that. So this part is the query string, right? Or some people, or like for example, React calls it search param, right? So this is like your search parameters, and you can use this to your advantage um, when you're designing your API, right? So let's see how we can actually use it, right? Um, so let's see. I have to do's, right? I have to do's with user ID. And let's see how we can actually apply these query strings, right? Let's see how we can just apply them. So first, let me spin up the server. Let me check. Oh, is that what I used? Okay, I'm not. I don't want to use. I want to use a node mod. So npm run dev, right? Then the next thing to do would be uh I want to just query to get the list of um where is it? I want to just query to get a list of to-dos, right? I just want to query to get a list of to-dos, right? But then uh let's wait for the server to actually start up. Right. So now I want to I'll show you how to implement searching and then sorting uh on the to-dos, and then you can also use that knowledge to um also execute yours. Okay. So we'll see how we can actually do that. I'm waiting for the server to start up. I don't know why the server is delaying. It's supposed to start up. Okay, cool. So let me make that query to get a list of to do. Okay, we just have one. So I need to add more to dos, right? I need to add more to dos. So my sixth task, say um um a simple task, sorry. I say a simple task. Then this is a very small task, something like that. So I'll just keep adding new ones. A great task. This is what is task, and I could say something like a broad task. I know what I'm doing. A broad task is a task with many subtasks. All right. So let me query the get again to get me all the to-dos, right? Okay. So it's saying cannot get to do. Uh, so let's trace that error. / to do. Oh, / page and limit. Okay, cool. So which means we'll just say 110. And of course, we get our list of to-dos, right? Right. So now, how do we order it? Right? Okay, first let's implement search. How do we implement a search on this? For example, I want to I want to search for any tax whose title has sixth, right? And we know that this one has sixth. We also know that this one has sixth. And I'm not sure there's any other one that has sixth. Okay, we have a total of 12 documents. Now, how do we do that? First, definitely we'll need to attach a query string to this. So maybe we would say something like this, um where title equals to where title equals to sixth, right? So we want to do that, but then doing this doesn't change anything on the task. It's still going to give you your normal list of tasks. So this is the simple way to handle this. Now, let's trace that the endpoints that is concerned with this. So we come here. Let me move this here. Okay. We come in endpoint that is concerned. So now for us to get query params, this is how we do it. We say const bracket equals to req dot query, and your query will always come as an object. So you can decide to create maybe destructure them. So you have title as one of the values of your query. Then this is what I do next. I'll then create um I'll say let's queue or let's query equals to an empty object, right? Then the next thing I'll do is I'll then say if if is task dot sorry, if title, right? If title exists and title dot length is greater than um let's say 2. So I want it that you can search for 2 characters, right? As far as you have up to 2 characters in your title, you can search for it. Then what I can now do is I can then say query dot um title should be equals to, bracket open, bracket close. Then I would say a dollar symbol, and then I would say regex. So now regex, and the regex will have or use the title, and then the next thing would be to use the options. I can't remember if it's options or option. It should be plural. So I here, and I'm going to explain. So first thing is, you want to do a regular expression search, right? And regular expression is a method you use in programming, right? And some databases also support it, right? Like MongoDB supports it, where you can search for a pattern rather than searching for a literal value, right? For example, you might want to search for a pattern where you can also use regex to search for um a pattern, right, in a text or in a number or something. So now let's take, for example, maybe you have a sentence, right, and you want to extract all phone numbers from that sentence. Maybe it's a whole paragraph, but that paragraph has phone numbers, right? So and maybe the wrote persons from the expression as far as maybe the phone number pattern is consistent, right? So you can search. Okay. Uh, Someone is saying I'm breaking. So let me see. Don't know if this solves it. Hopefully that would solve it. So sorry about the break, right? Now, what you're saying here is, right? You want to search the database for where title contains this value or whatever you're searching for, maybe six task or so, right? You want to do it that way, okay? And once the database looks for any or when it's looking for record, it will look for record that has that title or that has the value of the title you're looking for. Then this part here is saying that I don't want uh I don't want the title to be case sensitive. That's why you have this I here, right? So this I here denotes that you're trying to search, but you want it to be case insensitive. So if there is maybe uh, a title that has six in it, but the six starts with capital S, or there's a capital letter in between it, right? It's going to ignore it. It's going to ignore the case sensitivity and just return that as part of the results for its search on the database. So let's test what we've done so far, right? So we come back here and we search. Let's see what the results we get. So if you look, right, we have a couple of six tasks. Okay, we even have a simple task. Okay, so I it's not supposed to return this one. Okay, so what did it do? It returned a total of 12 documents and 2 pages. Okay. Uh So okay, now sorry. I know why, right? I didn't complete what I did here. So let me come back here. Sorry, I didn't complete what I did here. Um, what's going on? Okay, so now what I've done, right, is correct, but then what I failed to do was to include the query here. Short and simple. So now the query will contain a property name title, and the title will be equals to this expression or this object. So let me go and do the search again. Let me go and do the search again. And you see, so now six task, six task. This is my sixth task. This is my sixth task, and this is my sixth task. There are plenty. Okay, so if you notice, this is the last document. This is my sixth task. It returned a total of 7 documents, right? Returned a total of 7 documents. So this is, you can use this to implement search, right? So maybe if there's a search bar, right, on your front end, and then something is typed here and the person clicks search, you can actually use the same endpoints that you're using to present a list of maybe products or a list of whatever you're presenting. But then you just need to append this field to your Axios. And when I mean appending it, I don't mean hard coding it to the URL just the way I did. There is a parameters um uh object or property on the object. Let me show you how you can do it though. So let's take, for example, I was writing Axios, right? Let's say I was writing Axios. I don't know, for people that might not be familiar, how many of you know how to do it already? How many of you know how to append a search string or query string to your front end URL? That's to the URL that is making the requests to the back end, but not doing it uh, directly on the URL. So for example, let me just give that example, right? So maybe you're writing your Axios, let's say maybe um const res should be equals to Axios, maybe await Axios.get, then your URL http forward slash whatever you want. And this is what I mean. You now say params, right? You say params is equals to the parameter object. So this parameter object can contain the title will now be equals to the events.targets.value. This would be the value of what you're searching for, right? Then you can add more and also add more. So this is like the proper way to do it. Coming here to now write maybe question mark and then title equals to, that's not the right way to do it though. Okay, so we've been able to do that, and then let's see how we can order this, right? How we can order this. So you can decide to search for the same thing in your description if you don't just want to search for it in your title. So even now, another advantage of this is, since we are also checking the length, if you say that the length, maybe the title is empty, for example, and you make that search, it will give you your complete 12 documents, right? 2 pages, 10, which means the next page has just 2 documents. Okay, so I'm going to search for the one that contains small. Okay, I think it's broad. Yeah. So this is the one that contains broad. Okay, then how can we actually how can we sort, right? So you might want to sort by date, maybe ascending, descending, and the rest. Oh, sorry. May I disturb you? Sorry. Okay. Sorry about that. Um, so these are how you would want to implement sorts if you want to sort by ascending. For example, I might want to sort by the date, the created at date, maybe ascending or descending. So descending is usually from the latest that was created to the oldest. Then the ascending is from the oldest to the latest, right? So how do you do that? How do we allow the users do that? Right? Can do this. So where is it? Where is it? Where is it again? So this to use controller. Maybe you can have something like sorts. Then you say if sorts if sorts is equals to um date ASC, if it's equals to date ASC, then you want to do something like this. Now this is what you would want to do. You want to say something like let sort equals to that object also, right? You say um okay, so the same or sort objects. So if sort is equals to sort ascending, maybe date ascending, you could do something like this. Sort objects dot maybe maybe I want to sort created at, right? Created at should be equals to um created at 1. Then you want to say else if it's sort descending, then you want to probably do the same thing. You want to probably do the same thing, but this time you'd say you say this should be -1, right? You could also keep checking. Maybe if it is a name ascending or if it's name descending. So depending on what is appended there, if it's name ascending, you could just check. Or if it's name, maybe for example, if you're trying to sort a list of users, you want to sort them by name. So if sort is equals to name ascending, then you can say maybe first name, or let's say first name ascending, you say first name equals to 1. Maybe if it is the value of sort is first name descending, you then say first name should be equals to uh or sorry uh this is where I made a little mistake. This is supposed to be -1 like this, while this is supposed to be 1. Yeah, that's how it's to be. So um let's see this in action. Let's see that in action. And so this is date ascending. So we could come here and do the same thing. We'll just say and sort equals to date ascending. And let me just remove this part. So if you check, right? So ascending would be from the oldest to the latest. So you see, the first of that was January, February, March, April, May, June, July, right? The 1st of July, the 10th of July, 10th, and then if you keep scrolling down, then you see we now have 8th of August, and so on and so on. Or 5th of August, right? And the rest. So if we change this to DSC, if we change it to DSC and make that request, now you notice that, sorry, let me check what I wrote. Okay, so it's giving, okay. Oh, sorry. I didn't even apply this sort, and sorry about that. So this is what I was supposed to do. After populating, I was supposed to say sort. Sort. In fact, since they are okay, sort should be equals to sort value. Sorry, I didn't apply that. So already the sort value is an object. Is already an object. So sort value. Then let me go back here and make that request again. Okay, so I'll say ASC, and I don't think anything will change. Okay, so I think I made a mistake. Okay, sorry, it's sort object, not sort value. So it's sort object, sorry. And if I make that request, right? This one is still the same, right? So by default, it's as in it's always bringing back. I think it's sort by the ID also. It sorts by ID by default. If I'm not mistaken, it's sorted by the ID by default. But then also, the IDs are created. It also shows it's ascending. So nothing really changes here. But if we say date DESC, now you notice that it now starts showing from the latest, right? From the ones we created today. 5th, created some, then 22nd of last month, then 22nd, 15th, and like that till the oldest. Okay, so with this, right, and you can also search and sort at the same time. So if I say maybe uh title should be equals to 6th, and I want to sort it by that. Okay, sorry, 6th. There's supposed to be an ampersand symbol there. Yeah, see, so it's going to start from the latest to show me down to the oldest that was created. Okay, so this is descending, right? And you can also make this. So now this is not just query strings are not just only used for uh maybe just sorting and just searching. You can append as much query strings as you want for a particular you can add filter. For example, if you want to filter by tasks that are done, right? Let's say so you want to only get pending tasks, right? You want to get only pending tasks. You can also do so. You can do something like this. So you'd come here, you'd say maybe it's pending, and then you'd want to say something like this. If is pending, or you just say task status. I don't want maybe task status, right? So you say task status, and you say where if task status is equals to completed, or let's start with pending. Then you want the query dot to do status to be. In fact, instead of doing this self, you can say if there's a to-do status, if there's a value of to-do status, then you just say to-do status is equals to the task status. And because if the task status is pending, you want to then add the to-do status of that task status, which is pending, right? And so, but then if the task status is null, it won't even add it to the query in the first place. So I don't need to, there's no other thing I need to do down here. I don't need to do anything because the query is already applied. So it's just for us to go and check again. So I think I call that task status. So we can say and task status equals to pending. So it will give you the same results. To give you the same results because all of them are actually pending. All of them are pending, but maybe if I change it to completed and search. So there's no tax, right, with the title of that contains 6 and tax status of completed, and so there's nothing for it to also sort. So that's why it's returning this. So you can do this now. So this tax status on the front end could be a drop down where the user chooses, what to show, right? This sort can also be a drop down. The user chooses that, oh, he wants it to be in ascending order, descending order. Well, this search could be an input, And of course, if you're writing React, you say that you'll be watching the value of this sort. Once this sort changes, you want to automatically fetch, maybe using your use effect, or if you're using tan stack, you put it in the dependency, I think it's called dependency array in tan stack query, right? You put it there. So as soon as the sort changes or the task status drop down changes, right? You fire the request to refresh the data or send back data, right? Then you have this title also, maybe as an input, as a search input. So, sorry, as an input where users can type in. So with that said, right? I don't know if you guys have learned anything. Have you guys learned anything? Anybody has learned any new thing? Is there any question? Okay, so one thing that makes query strings unique is that they are dynamic. They are dynamic, right? Now, if you wanted to do the same thing with posts, you can do it and then use your request body. But a simpler way to do it would be to use query strings. A very simple way to do it, actually. Um, so yeah, so you could do this. Maybe if you were designing a search for a product, you can do something like maybe and minimum price or minimum cost should be maybe equals to 5,000 naira, maybe depending on what the user sets, and maximum cost should be equals to maybe 80,000, right? And then you also write the whole thing where this is less than or greater. You can read about how to use less than, and this is what is called LTE. Yes. So someone is asking, can we use query strings for page and limits? Definitely, definitely. So um so this is the thing, right? When I started coding, right? I didn't like query strings. I hated it. And um I didn't always want to or like to use it. So I always want to use my page and limits. Then I have a special endpoint for search. But then that was me stressing myself because I could actually do everything about maybe getting and searching from one endpoint without necessarily stressing myself trying to implement one endpoint that returns maybe a list where you can use to search and then another one to search, right? So yeah, you can use it. You can add and page equals to this and limit equals to that and in your query string and use it that way, right? So if you wanted to do that now, if you wanted to do that here, we would say and page equals to 1 and limit equals to 5, right? Then uh in here, you just simply say um you just simply move the page and limit from here to here. As simple as that. Just move it that way. So if we make the same request the second time, we find out that the limit is okay. So let me change it to pending. So you see, the limit is 5, the page is 1. Maybe if I change this to 2, find out that I'm on page 2 now, right? I'm on page 2, and there are 2. So I'm on page 2, and there are like two records showing here, right? 2 records showing here. Okay, so uh that's it, right? You can do that. It's allowed. In fact, this is the default way of doing it. Don't mind the fact that I added forward slash this forward slash that. I would rather remove it and then also remove it in my route. So I have the same, I have the same thing. So is there any question? Is there anybody that wants to ask a question? So and so let me say also that query strings are not limited to just string values, right? Like maybe title is equals to a string value. You can also use things like boolean here. You can use boolean. You can have an array. For example, if you want the user to check, maybe for example, if you're designing a search and filter feature on your front end. Let's say you have an e-commerce and then you want the user to choose the particular kinds of brands he wants to see for a particular product. You can do something like and brands, maybe brands chosen would be equals to an array. Maybe he wants to see Adidas, maybe he wants to see Puma, he wants to see D&G, right? D&G. So you can you can use this, right? Maybe so if you were doing this on your um mm, so if you were to search something like this, what you would want to do is this is how you want to search it. Maybe if you have an array, right? You want to say maybe something like maybe brand. What did I use there? Was it brand I use or brand value? I can't remember. So I could say brand if so it's just a couple of ifs, right? So I'll say if brand value dot length is greater than 0, then uh query dot maybe brand, if there was a brand property there, should be equals to uh then in MongoDB you use $ in, and then you now say the brand value. So this is going to search for products where the brand value is in that list of brand values that the user wants to search. So if the Adidas, Puma, D&G, it will only fetch for products that have that brand and then meet other criteria in terms of the other query parameters you're adding to it. So yeah. I hope you guys have learned something. And so let's move to something else. Let's move to something else. Is there any question? So try to read about your MongoDB because MongoDB is quite deep, right? Um, you would want to do by making multiple, just making one single query. You do that thing. The aggregate feature, right, in MongoDB. So if you don't know about it, you can actually about it, how to use aggregate feature. So aggregate, I'm just saying this on the surface. So aggregate feature can be used to kind of merge two tables, right? Like if you want to pick users and then you want to pick maybe a particular order from a user or something like that. You can use aggregates to kind of join those tables and return the result as one, rather than maybe picking a list of users and then trying to look through those users to get list of products or something like that also. So read about aggregates also in terms of MongoDB and Mongoose. A very interesting feature to use. Okay, so that's um that's it. So let's dive into something else. Right. So in the last class we did sockets.io. We we um we saw how everything played out. I want to start Postman. So let's come back here and see what happened. So first here, first thing we did here was that we created the endpoint for sockets.io, right? Sorry, this could be like a bit distracting. Sorry. So we created this IO server.use socket next socket handshake authorization to check and what's it being called? To check if a user is logged in, right? And then pass his decoded value to the next route or the next what is going to be used to manage the connection, right? Then the next thing we did was server.on. So the first thing you do on your backend is you listen to a connection. It's very important. Apart from having your middleware, this one just checks for this and then decides if you will continue to connect or if you will be bounced back. So once this is done, you establish your connection, and then this one is just a welcome message, just to tell you how far welcome. And after that, I just decided to log some things out. So I logged out your socket ID. I logged out the value of your handshake, right? Or the value of the decoded value of your handshake. So there's this concept called handshake, right? So where your front end meets with the back end and they talk and they establish a good relationship, a good working relationship with each other, right? Then once that happens, that means the handshake was actually successful. Okay, then the next thing we did was we now added that user that just connected to a room, right? So when you say you've added someone to a room, anything you do that concerns that room, right, or concerns that person you added to that room will affect that person. So if I emit an event to this ID, right, it is presumed that as far as this person is added to this room, right, somehow sockets.io manages this particular user, right? So if you send any event to any user with that ID that has been added to the room, on the front end, they are going to get, or on their mobile app or whatever, they are going to get that that value. So or that event. So if you're not using sockets.id, maybe you don't want to maintain a list of maybe IDs that are mapped to their user IDs or something like that, right? You can just simply add the user ID to a group or a room, and then when once the person disconnects, right, or when once that socket.id disconnects, it will also trace the user ID that is concerned with that socket ID that disconnected, and also remove the person from that room or from that group. And then the goodbye message would be logged out. Okay, then I just did this as an example to see how you can maybe send a message, right? So this was just an example. And then apart from this, the next thing I also did was that I also experimented with this, see how we can send a ping message to or see how a ping message can come in and then a pong is sent back, and then maybe a message body is also sent back to test something. Right. Then another very important thing I did was this, which is very, very important. So the IO server we've created, right, which we can use to emit events, I just added that server to a socket. Okay. I just added it to oh sorry, not a socket, sorry. I added it to a new object property called the socket, right? I could call this anything I want to call it. I could call it SOC, I could call it whatever I want to call it. I could just call it IO. Maybe I just say req.io equals to IO server, finish. And nobody will do beat me. But then doing this, right, adds something to Express that can be used in other routes, that can be used in any of these routes. So this makes it possible for any of these routes to emit an event from its controller, just this line of code. It makes it easy for any of these routes to emit an event uh from its controller. For example, this message route, right? Now note we have req.socket. In this message route, when we come here, we see that we are referring to, at the bottom, res.socket. Res.socket here is going to refer to that socket.io, right? It's going to refer to that socket.io that we added using a middleware, right? Then we can then call the normal to emit, and then we send a message and the rest. Remember that the user that you're trying to send that message also has to listen to that particular event. So if you're sending a send message event, the user will listen to it. Right. It's right. Then the user has to listen to the event. Okay. Then this here comes the part that got almost everybody confused. Right. So I would give I would try to relate this to a real life example. Now, when you're chatting with somebody, right? You know that let me share used to go somehow. So there's this chat list, or what they call friend list. Yeah, like your list of friends. Then you can click on a friend to see his messages. Now that list is called the chats. Your chat list, that's a list of the people you're chatting with. Okay. A list of the people you are chatting with. So what we did when we send a message, right? I'm sending a message to somebody and I'm using his user ID. I'm sending a message to a particular user ID. Then I'm also sending a message, and if there's any file, maybe, so these files could be a list of URLs, right? So the first thing I want to check is, okay, so I create the message first. I create that message, right? That the message is between these two people, but I am the one that is sending that message. So the message is between me and Matilda, right? But I'm the one that is sending the message. Now, why do I need why am I even writing this user IDs then still writing sender again? Because of, now the reason I'm writing this is, if I want to fetch messages between me and the person I'm chatting with, right? Whether, irrespective of whether I'm the one that sent the message or the other person is the one that sent the message, this is what I will use. I will then, somewhere in my, if I want to query those messages, I'll say where user IDs. So the object will look something like this. When I want to query it, I'll say where user IDs is dollar, then in this. When I want to query for messages that me and that person actually had. So I could do this where this is equals, so where the user IDs is includes my user ID and that person's user ID, whether in any order, whether it's the two that comes first before my own or my own comes first before that one, it will return any chat that has to do with those two. Then why am I checking sender? So now you know that some messages, like for example, let's take for example WhatsApp, messages that you send show on the right and they show in a different color. Messages that is sent to you show on the left and they show in a different color, right? So if the sender ID is your own ID, then it should show it on the right because it means that you're the one that sent that message. But if the sender ID is not yours, then it means it is the other person that sent it, so it should show on the left. Is there anybody, are you guys following? Is there anybody that is lost? Anybody lost? Okay, so where do I take it again from? So someone is asking that I should take it again. Where do I take it again from? Based on where I'm to start from. Okay. Okay. So I was saying, remember now, right? That when, okay, let's take for example, you're chatting with Matilda, although Matilda is not here, right? So you send a message to Matilda, right? The your ID and the ID of Matilda would be recorded in this user ID. Even if she sends a message to you too, your ID and her ID will be recorded as in these user IDs to signify that this message is between you and this person. Does that make sense to you? Now, if I am the one that is sending a message to you, I am the sender, you are the receiver. There's no need for me. I could say sender is equals to ariki.id, then I come and say receiver is what. There's no need for me to now have receiver down here again because the receiver will then, if the sender is not me, then it means that the person that received the message is me. As far as that chat is between me and you or you and Matilda, for example. Okay. So if you have, you might want to use receiver instead of sender. You might just say, oh, receiver is equals to user sorry, receiver is equals to 2. But me, I don't like using receiver. I like using sender. So if the sender is me, right? If the sender is my own ID, it means I am the one that is sending that message. Of course, you know that if Matilda wants to send a message to you, she's also going to call this same function. And then this sender ID will now become her own ID when she's sending a message to you. So her own ID will be here, while your own ID will be the 2 that she's sending the message to. Does it make sense to you now? Okay, cool. Now, you now also create the message and then you record the files for that message if there is any, right? Now, what if this is the first time you're sending Matilda a message? Or maybe you said something Matilda did not like and then she deleted your chat. Now, this part is just checking if you have a chat with Matilda, if Matilda appears on your list of friend list, or sorry, did I say list of friends? That's tautology. On your list of friends, that's what we are checking here. We are looking while creating that message. If you have Matilda on your friends list, right? Remember, so notice this thing that happens on let's take Messenger for example, right? Once when you want to send someone message for the first time, it doesn't create that person as in your list of maybe people you're chatting with. It takes you directly to their DM. When you send that first message, it now creates the chat for you. That is what we are trying to do here. Well, after creating the message, we are checking if if we do not want to do this one, we can check if this is the first message, but checking that if this first message that you're sending might be a little bit buggy. But what we are doing now is first we are checking, do I even have a chat with this person? Do I have any chat? Like I don't talk before with this person before. If I have chatted with this person before, then it will skip this part. But if I don't have a chat with that person, which means the person is not on my friend list, as I'm sending that message, create that chat between me and that person. So that if I want to fetch my own chats, my list of chats, right? I'll just say chat model dot find where me, that's my own chat is my ID, and it will fetch for me everybody. So I'll then populate the toe. So the toe will be the person I'm chatting with. Then I also do that for the other person. I also do that for the other person, right? So, so what I'm doing here is if I have a chat with this person already, then update the last message ID. So you know that thing that when you're viewing your chat, you see the person's name, you also see the person's message. Then maybe it will show read, unread, this and that, and all the stuff, right? But I didn't go to the read and unread part. But this right here is going to make it possible for you to when you're fetching a chat between you and that person, it will show you a list, or it's sorry you the chat. Then we also do the same thing on the other end. We check if um if the other person has my own chat. That's if the other person has me on his own list of friends. So now we are now switching it where the me is the toe, that is the person I'm sending the request to, and then the other person is this user ID. So we are checking if the person has chat with me. So if the person doesn't have chat with me, it should create that chat between that person and me. You understand? So that when the person comes and the person views his friends list, he's going to see a list of messages. Do you get? He's going to see a list of messages, and he will also see, sorry, a list of chats, and he will also see your chat as part of that list. Then we are saying if the person already has a chat with me, then we should update this, should update the other person's chat last message to the message maybe I just sent, or he just sent, anybody just sent. Here also we can do something. Maybe we can have something like list of last messages, or sorry, on read message count, and so on. And so we can then check for unread messages, right? If we implemented unread messages, we can actually, after creating this message, we query the message model to check for unread messages, and then we check for unread messages from this person, and then we can add it in the chat model, and then we do the same thing here also, but we're not going to uh implement that, right? That would be like way complex. Then after that, the next thing I do is I send the message to this other person, and then I I just return me myself now. I just maybe message sent, something like that. So that message sent can just, this is going to send a 200, I can just maybe tick the message once and wait for the server to tell me that you're online, so that I'll tick the message twice and the rest totally up to you. So then I have a list of chats between me and this other person, right? I have a list of chats. So the list of chats is, oh, me and who I'm chatting with. If I have 3 persons I'm chatting with, this should show the list of the 3 persons I'm chatting with their last messages, right? I could even populate the message. So one thing I didn't do is populate the message. So let's do that. Okay, so we'll say populate oh, oh. So let's check here. Okay, so the last message ID is what I want to populate. Okay, it's already populated. It's already referring to that here. So I'll come here. I would say I want to populate the last message ID, because the last message ID now will show the ID, the last message, right? And since I'm not using created at and updated at, I can just say, in fact, what's the need of that? I want to remove the whole thing self. I want it to send me only message. In fact, I just want it to send me only the message. Okay. Mm, Well, let me just remove only the created at and updated at, finish. Right. And that's a very simple chat app we just did, right? So, and let's test it again. Let's test it again. Um, wow, quite interesting. So, uh, for some funny reasons, or for some funny reason, I can't find. So let me refresh my Postman. For some reasons, I can't find any of the APIs I created before. And I'm just refreshing it. So I'm waiting for it to come up. I'll soon share my screen. So before I still share my screen, before I share my screen, do you guys have any question as to how this whole entire structure works? Right? So this is where this is what I was even saying. So this is me now. Maybe when you click on a particular message, you now fetch all the messages between you. Oh, sorry, yeah, you fetch all the messages that is between you and that person, right? There's also room for pagination in terms of there's also room for pagination in terms of messaging, in terms of sending message. Like you can paginate, but the paginate will be upside down. So while you're scrolling up, it should be loading. You can do something like infinite scroll, right? So when someone sends a new message, what you then do is you pop out the oldest message in the list of messages, and then you push in a new message on the array of messages on your mobile app or your front end, and you keep doing that as the bots like send messages. So even if the person leaves the message space and then comes back to it, right, it will still be updated because you're constantly removing and adding messages from the page. So you can actually manage pagination too, although it's a little bit painful. Some people prefer Firebase because Firebase uses pointers. You can point to this is where I stopped. So if you're loading data, you load from here, this particular record downwards or till to the latest rather than loading it by page. Okay, so um beautiful. So let me stop sharing and reshare. Okay. Um oh wow. Wow. Okay, so I'll still do it again. Mm, okay, I did this before previously. So for some funny reasons, it just wiped out what I did before. So I have to create it again. Uh, then let me check my version of sockets.io. So in your package.json sockets, I'm using 4.8.1. So which means I'll change this to 4. Then I don't know again what I'm supposed to do. Don't mind me. So um that's the send message event to listen to, save it. Please, can you save? Please just save. I'm begging you in the name of Jesus. Save. Command you. Okay, please save. Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, wow. So there's a sockets.io test here, but I can't find it. Postman showing me uh a different shade of shaggy. Whoa, I just created something. I just created something. Wow. Hmm. So there's this funny thing I like doing with Postman. So Postman was made using uh what's the name of that library again? Electron. Oh. Then so it's actually going to reload. So instead of closing it to open it, right? Just Control Shift and I while you're on Postman, right? Postman is more like a browser, so it has its console also. So wow, so for some reason Postman is acting up. Um, wow, wow. So um, well, so we already tested this in our last class, right? And I would have loved to test it again, right? But then Postman is already acting up, right? Postman is already acting up. Um, just be on the call. Let me stop and restart Postman. Let me stop it and then restart it. I don't know why it's acting up. I'm waiting for Postman to load, and if it still has the same issues, then I wouldn't have any other option than to uh maybe stop for the meantime also. So Postman is still loading. Postman is still loading. Wow. And now it's not showing any of the collections anymore. Okay, so guys, something that is beyond my control, and one or two things into this class, and I would round it up here. Is there any question based on anything I've thought so far that you guys would want to ask? Any question? Is there any? All right. So in the absence of any question, I would call it a day. Thank you for coming out to today's class, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.